everybody. I am here today and we're going to carry on talking about taking your events online, and today we are talking about the role of a compere. So obviously most of you Cobra Club members know Tim for his social media business, but today he's joining us in his role as a compere and what a compere he is. So I'm just going to give you a bit of a bio on Tim. He is a professional presenter, compere and MC. He's been hosting shows, conferences, videos and awards since 2011. Started out in local radio. Tim specialised in keeping audiences informed, educated and entertained by making subjects accessible, relevant and engaging. He is also a master of keeping the show on the road, creating a real buzz and maintaining a great flow, even if things don't go to plan behind the scenes. And I guess that's some of the stuff we're going to talk about today. We're going to give Tim an opportunity to showcase what he does. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to have a conversation about a challenge we are going to set for Tim this morning. So Tim is known as our Tim, and we'll let him explain a little bit more about that later on. But when Tim and I were talking about what we're going to do and how we can show how important a compere or a host is for an online event, and it can be a networking meeting, it can be a business meeting, you know, it could be a larger event, and the importance of the role is huge. So we are going to do something that's going to let him showcase what he does. What we want to do is give Tim a subject that he's gonna, while I'm doing a bit of talking and showing you some videos, go away, do a bit of research and show us what he does best on that specific topic. So we're keeping it clean. Has anybody got any suggestions of a topic they would like Tim to showcase later on in the presentation? And
this can be anything, absolutely anything.
Within reason, though, please. Can be anything.
I've got to have a think.
Yeah.
What's on your desk right now?
Laptop, my printer, cup of tea.
I've got sparkling water in front of me, so that's my suggestion. Sparkling water.
Okay, so has anyone got anything more interesting than sparkling water?
Okay, go away and research gin.
Gin?
Yeah.
Gin.
Yeah,
happy days. Okay.
Why not?
Gin.
So gin's a good one. Let's go with gin, and it's clean. So Tim's going to go off and do a few bits while I'm going to carry on talking and just start, as we normally do, about who is ZiaBia. Obviously, I'm Debbie, part of the Cobra Club, and I know most of you today, but obviously we've got an events consultancy and we are ZiaBia Events Consultancy, and we obviously ordinarily help our clients in a face-to-face environment. This year, like most businesses, we found ourselves in an unusual situation, so we are helping our clients take their events online, you know, and we are a consultancy, so we can help corporate businesses or charities, small businesses, and people don't know where to start really in an online environment. So it's helping them and give them the knowledge of how you can transition from something face-to-face to online and make it engaging and different and creative and thinking outside of the box. So we've done different subjects each week. Obviously we've covered already up till now. We did a session last week on audience well-being and the importance of that and what you could do. We did a really great interactive session. We've done a session on communications, and today is about the importance of a compere. What's bad about taking your events online is people that don't put any thought and care and attention into it. You know, this is an awful slide, but it just shows you some of the things that we've come across, you know, as we've been joining other people's events or meetings. And, you know, what we wanted to do is take everything that was bad about being online and changing it. And one of the most important things is about making sure it's short and snappy, it's engaging, you know, it's not just somebody talking, it's about making sure that you're making everybody included, you know. And one of the most important things we found is having a good person to bring it together. You know, if you've got multiple speakers, or you've got a group of people, or you need to get some interaction, then I'm so sorry, I'm very distracted because I can see Tim frantically reading, but
Shall I turn off
Jim,
my camera?
all about Jim.
Sorry, I'm salivating.
He's demonstrating all those points from the previous slide, Danny.
Yeah. So we're looking, you know, what's the definition, and we're talking about compares, but a compare could be known as all sorts of things. It could be a master of ceremony, MC, a host, event host, or a compare. And really, it's one person that can bring everybody together. You know, if you've got different speakers, you've got that person, they'll make the introduction, they'll bring the speaker on. They've usually got an ability to ask questions and making it engaging, so it's not just one way. Really, it's the glue that holds it all together in front of the audience. What I particularly like about it is that person's usually front facing, and then there's usually an event team behind that's the glue that holds it all together behind the scenes. And then it's really important that the event team and the host work together really well, because the host is relying on all the information they're being fed into. So it's all about communication and making sure stuff's really engaging. Some of the stuff they can cover is, you know, housekeeping, facilitating Q&As, and just making people feel comfortable. They also need to be able to think on their feet, which is a bit what we've done with Tim this morning, give him a bit of a challenge, because they've got to be able to be prepared for anything that might go wrong in the background. You know, we're in an online environment. We've got to think about what we are working with. You know, we think about the technology. There's people out there that are not so technologically minded. You've got to think about the AV and production behind the scenes, you know, and it's just about making sure that they can bring a bad situation to the good if anything goes wrong. So it's ever so much being able to think on their feet. A skilled compare truly enhances the attendee experience by keeping things slick. So while we're letting Tim do his thing, I wanted to show you an example of what a bad host or compare is. So a bad host or compare uses complicated language, doesn't make sense, doesn't make it relatable to the audience, obviously not talking about Jen, doesn't make it engaging, and they can lose the audience quite badly. So what I want to do is show you on YouTube a video. So I'm going to stop sharing this a second, and then we'll go on to YouTube.
It's produced by the modial interaction of Magneto reluctance and capacitive directance. The original machine had a base plate of prefamulated amulite surmounted by a malleable logarithmic casing in such a way that the two spurving bearings were in a direct line with a pentametric fan. The lineup consisted simply of 6 hydrocoptic Marsal vanes, so fitted to the ambifacient lunar wane shaft that side fumbling was effectively prevented.
Enough. Give it
I
in.
know,
The main
right?
winding was of the normal Lotus Note Delta.
Are you sure? We've got a bit longer that we could share that for.
I was thinking I'll get hold of him, see if he'd like to do a stint on the Big Bristol Brunch next week. He'd be brilliant.
Definitely. Speaking slot right there for you. And I guess it's just proving the point, you know, how quickly did we all switch off? He was using language that none of us knew. He was talking about, the thing is, the reason I said sparkling water to Tim is it doesn't have to, even if the subject's boring, you can bring it to life. And it's about using humour or making it interactable. That's not even a word, but making it, you know, so whoever's with you buys into what you're talking about. And obviously somebody like that you're never going to buy into. But yeah, hilarious. That was Tim's example.
It's just painful, that, isn't it? You just watch it, like, I don't know what this man is talking about, and I've switched off.
Yeah,
completely. So I'm going to share something else this time. Again, this time we're going to talk about our Tim in action, because he's got some really great footage. And so it's another YouTube link I'm going to show you. Although he's going to do his little session on gin later on, I think it's really important for us to see him, how he is in a normal environment. So I'm going to share this.
Do you like cars?
I'm just going to, sorry, you have to stop sharing again. That's the problem with going in between different things when you've not got a production team with you, which you would do normally if you're going to do it properly.
Tanks and great videos? Then you're going to love this. Hi, I'm Tim, and I've been presenting shows, videos and events all over the UK for over 10 years now. I love anything with an engine, especially my fleet of old cars. Back in 2019, I started filming behind the scenes to take you closer to the action. On my channel, you will get a unique perspective to the shows and events I present, whether you are there or not. And when I'm not presenting, I'm embracing my passion for all things automotive and having as much fun as possible on 2, 3 and 4 wheels. And of course, replying to your comments. I'm making these videos to entertain more people than ever before. So if you like the sound of that and the look of this, then make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. I post new videos every week and I can't wait for you to see my next video.
Brilliant. So I love getting videos like that, because it's always great to see how people are with each other. And you know, obviously if we're gonna put a compare to a client as a suggestion, we'd always ask for what their work's like, so you know, it brings that person to life. I know Tim and I had worked together recently on a tender, and we'd put, you know, the video in there so people could see what his style was. You know, every compare is different. One thing that you need to think about is, before we come on to some top tips from Tim, is it's all about the planning and the detail behind the scenes. You know, for somebody to be able to be in that role on the day, you need to think about how much information they've got, and it's all about rehearsal. As much as there's an element of flying by the seat of your plans, there's also got to be a lot of planning involved, and there's much information as possible that you can give to somebody to give them all the information they need to then go away and deliver. It's invaluable. So it's about making it as slick as possible, and half of that is in the planning and the rehearsal. So what are we doing next? We're now going to talk to Tim about his top 3 tips. So I know you're going to say first tip, Tim. I'm going to put your first tip in there for you. Is work with a professional events agency.
Yes.
Bring it all together, obviously. So that's number 1. What are your other 3 tips?
So I'll share some tips for you guys for if you are presenting. First tip that I'm going to give you is be good with the tech. Okay, know the technology, understand how it works. Be comfortable with the technology. There's nothing worse than if you're trying to present and something's gone wrong and you're trying to fumble around with it. If something does go wrong, be honest. Okay, just say very comfortably and calmly, okay guys, slight thing's gone wrong here, we're just going to have a look at this, please bear with us just for a couple of minutes while we sort this out. It's about managing your audience's expectations. Second top tip I'm going to give you is relax. It sounds a lot easier than what it is, but just relax. All you're doing is having a conversation, but rather than having a conversation with a single person, having a conversation with multiple people. So just relax and be comfortable in yourself. People are not actually looking at you or judging you. They're listening to you. And another top tip for you as well is, as you can see here, I'm looking at the camera, and this is a real pain of mine, and we all do it, and even I do it when I'm in Zoom meetings. I'm like this. I'm looking down and I'm looking at the screen because I'm seeing what people are doing. Whereas if I'm looking at the camera, I'm actually engaging you, and you actually feel like I'm looking at you through the screen. Even though I'm not actually looking at you right now, I'm just looking at my little camera there. And my final top tip for you, smile. You'd be amazed how different you sound when you smile. Now, if I was to talk like this with a very glum face, you can hear how different my voice sounds to if I'm really energetic and I'm smiling. I'm quite happy to be talking like this. Now, it might feel a bit weird to be always be smiling. You don't need to be gurning like this all the time because that's a bit weird. Just smile, just smile. And I'll give you a bonus top tip as well. When you're on camera, avoid wearing patterns, okay? Very tight check patterns or stripes in particular. You can see the clothes I'm wearing today, just a plain grey. Cameras, when they are far away from patterns like that, the pattern starts to merge. You get sort of a barcoding effect on there. It doesn't look good, and it can actually be very distracting. So try and go for either a plain or quite a broad pattern. So the pattern that Debbie's wearing today is perfect. The camera's not playing around with it at all. It shows a bit of colour, a bit of vibrancy, but plain pastels, whites and so forth, they work quite well. I would always opt for a pastel over a white just because white can tend to make you look a little bit washed out. So there are a few top tips for you if you're doing any sort of presenter work or you're going to be doing any Zoom work in the digital space.
Thank you. I think that's really helpful. I've got to say that some of those tips I was aware of, but actually the patterns thing I haven't considered before, so that's really good to know.
Really important, especially in the environment we're in now, where we're always looking at a camera. Patterns, very tight patterns, very, very important to make sure you avoid them.
Yeah. Another top tip from me that we've not covered yet is about having a backup and contingency plan. So although you might have a compere or a host in place and rehearsed and booked, even if you've got good technology in place and a good tech team, there are always a situation that you need to plan for and have a contingency for. And it's something that we really do focus on when we're doing our event planning, is to make sure that there is a backup. So if today Tim hadn't been able to join us, we would have had a backup plan of how we could manage the presentation today. We've got some of his stories out there. We've got other things that we could have shared with you. We did an event recently where we had got the compere, but we'd got a member of the event team that had been in all the rehearsals, knew the briefing back to back, they knew the end client back to back, and they would have been prepared to jump into that host compere role should there have been any issues, and as much as you try and counteract with technology, even if you've got Wi-Fi, you can get hardwire into a router to get broadband backup or hook off your phone. You just need to think about planning for the unexpected. I suppose Cobra Club's a good example of that. You've got Andy and Ed, both of them are around. I've been on calls where Ed's dropped off because he's had bad internet, but he knows that Andy would just pick it up, and it's just making sure that you think about stuff like that, and it's not just one person that you're reliant on, especially when you're delivering to an end client or a bigger audience. It's just making sure that you've got some plans in place. Right, where are we going next? So we've got an opportunity to talk about favourite moments and epic fails. It'd be good to hear from you, Tim, from this point of view, but if anybody's got any other stories afterwards, please feel free to share.
Okay, so let's have a think. Right, so epic fails. Weekend just gone, classic weekend. Turned up at the event, and their commentary point was, should we say, been thrown together quite a few years ago, and it decided on Saturday morning that it was going to completely fall apart. So the mics didn't work, the mixer was going mad, it was just total carnage. But I always turn up to my events very early in the morning. I will get there probably about 7:30. The first thing I do before I do anything is check all of the kit. I want to make sure that everything is working before that deadline comes. So very quickly identified there's a problem here, we're a bit stuck. Luckily, I also carry a spare mixer, microphones, etc. with me. So we had the time to take out their old kit that wasn't working and literally rewire their commentary point at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning, so that when people arrived at 10 o'clock, they had no idea any of this had happened. So that was, mitigation of a problem and having that backup. So that was quite an interesting one that almost went wrong over the weekend. A few years ago, I was presenting a show, and of course, outdoor shows. It started raining, bank holiday Monday. My client, who it was I think the first or second time that I'd worked with them, they said, people are starting to go home. What can we do? What can we do to try and get people, to stay at the event? It's like, okay, well, we're a bit stuck because it's all soft ground. We can't really have vehicle movement. Therefore, we're struggling to get vehicles into the arena. We're really stuck here. There's literally nothing that we can talk about or do to keep people here. So I was like, look, give me 15 minutes, I'll sort something out. And I knew we'd got a fire brigade on site, and I knew that they were due to cut the roof off a car. So I checked in with them and said, look, are you still happy to cut roof off car? And so forth. I was like, yeah, absolutely fine. I was like, are you happy to cut roof off car with me sat in it? Yeah, absolutely fine. Great, perfect. Straight on the microphone. Ladies and gents, please come down to the arena. In the next half an hour, we're going to cut a roof off a car, but I'm going to sit in it and tell you what happens while I'm sat inside. So this was a very quick, thinking on your feet, what do we do? So I sat inside this car and was cut out of it and rescued as if it was a real RTC. And I was talking from inside the car, and they treated me as if I was an injured party with inside that car. The result of it was that it kept the audience there, kept them engaged, kept them entertained. And even though it was pouring down with rain and everyone was freezing cold, they stayed right up until the point I was out of that car. And we said, thank you very much for joining us. At that point, that was when we said it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We said, look, we can't have any more vehicle movement. Please have a look around, have a look at the trade stands and so forth. But if you are going to head home, please do have a very safe journey. And everyone remembered that part of the show. They remembered me being cut out of the car. Now, I did that probably about 5 or 6 years ago now. I've currently been cut out of 53 cars, and I'm the only person in the world to be cut out of the same car twice. So it gives you an idea of some of the things that have happened and things that do happen behind the scenes. When you go to shows and events, a lot of time it feels that everything is very smooth. And if you've got a good compare and a good event team, it should feel like that. It shouldn't at any time feel like things are going wrong or something's not happening or you don't know what's going on. A good compare will keep everybody nice and calm, keep them informed, but also keep them entertained and engaged. And that's essentially what I make sure I do every single time I go out there.
Brilliant. Has anybody got any bad examples or good examples, or any epic fails where you've seen bad people hosting, or any good stories that they might like to share? I've got a bit of an example. We did an event once and we'd got a compere, and he was a celebrity. And my point about this story is that you can pay money to have a celebrity at your event, but not all of them are the best people to invest money in. You don't always need to spend a lot of money to get a good person. And we did this event, obviously I've delivered a lot of face-to-face events. I'm on about a face-to-face event, and I won't say who the celebrity is, but it was quite well known at the time. And it was at the Natural History Museum. We've got a group of 300 people at this event. He was waiting for the technical team to get him mic'd up ready to go on stage. And he came to me and said, if I don't get mic'd up in the next 5 minutes, I am walking out of here. Now, I have just edited what he said to me, because I don't want to swear, but it was actually really nasty and really rude. And, it's just about the perception then of how he came across. Now, he wasn't the best host on the day. He did an okay job, but then also he'd not made a very good impression on me to say who he was. And it just makes it really difficult when you're working in that environment. People buy people, whether you're a host, compere, an event company, whatever you do in your business, people buy people. And it's all about the impression you give people and about service levels, if that makes sense. And yeah, he didn't make a very good impression on me, and he only did an okay job, and I would never consider booking him again.
No, don't blame me.
I had a situation, it wasn't a compare, but I was at a work event. It was a big company, basically a company like annual meeting, and they decided to get a comedian in, but they didn't tell anyone. And this comedian, I think, was like semi-famous. I'd never heard of him, don't really know who he was, but his whole set, I'm sure it was really funny, but the audience was a group of people that work in a company, so they didn't have that connection with that comedian. When you go and see a comedian, you go and see the comedian because you know they're funny, you know you like them. And so it was very, so what they'd done was just make a sort of a show for us, for people that weren't actually interested, and it wasn't really relevant to the audience. And so that like made me very like cringe a lot inside. And that's something that I'm always aware of, is being really knowing your audience and making sure whatever you're doing, you're tailoring it to your audience. That's my sort of contribution and comment.
That is a classic. That's a classic not being set up. You haven't told the audience what to expect. They don't know what to expect. So for half of his set, they're sat there looking and going, "What's this guy? Is he meant to be funny? I don't really know." And then you get that awkwardness of what's going on here. I tell you one other thing that I've just remembered. It wasn't at one of my events, thankfully, because this was a total nightmare situation. But it was a fire service, and they decided what they were going to do was they were going to set a car on fire in the centre of the arena, and then they were going to rush in and put it out. Big spectacle and so forth. And what they had done was they'd put the car in the centre. They hadn't chained it down. They hadn't put any blocks under the wheels or anything like that. So this vehicle was just sat there. They'd put the handbrake off, but they'd left it in gear. So the car wasn't moving anywhere because it was in gear. And they set it to light. Now, when cars catch fire, it's very spectacular, yes, but all of the wiring inside, it all packs very tightly together into a loom. And it's sort of like if you've ever cut a mop off and you've seen like where it's all packed together, you can just it's like a tree trunk, like very, very thick. So of course when it gets hot, all of the rubber that surrounds those wires and keeps them separate melts, and all the wires fuse together, and then you start getting electrical pulses going through the car. Now, one of these electrical pulses fused all the wires together, and it meant that power was going from the battery, which they hadn't taken off the car, and it had started the starter motor. And anyone who's ever bump started their car, this car was now fully alight, and the starter motor was engaged in the engine, which was driving the car forward. So this car was completely unmanned, fully alight, and was now rolling and driving itself out of the arena, straight towards the fish and chip van, which was in service at the time. They got all this oil and everything going on, and they had to evacuate the fish and chip van. They had to clear all the air. The fire brigade rushed it. It got that bad that they actually called in additional units to come in and put it all out. And it was just one of those classic things where they've gone, yeah, this is a great idea. And someone hadn't sat there and gone, yeah, but what happens if? And it's always that, just make sure everything is locked down. And even if something fails or something goes wrong, there's a system there that will stop it going wrong again. So that it didn't happen at my event. I saw the video of it. It made me cringe like you wouldn't believe. And the most hilarious thing from it was the fire chief, who was in charge of the demonstration, had let his boys just get on with it, and he was sat back at his tent having a cup of tea. So when he saw all this commotion going on, wandered down, cup of tea in hand, what's going on here then, boys? Oh, seems the car's rolled down there. It's just
that wasn't part of the show.
No. So needless to say, that fire chief ended up getting sacked from it. The event team got in a lot of trouble because of the danger to public safety.
Yeah.
It was not a good outcome from that. Very spectacular, but not a good outcome.
No. So I just want to go back to Louisa's story and just say a couple of things off the back of that, because actually it's made a really good point. And one of the things I mentioned earlier was about planning. And part of the planning process, if you've got somebody in to be a host or a host role or do a show in that situation, part of it is making sure that they get a really comprehensive brief and time spent with them to explain what the end result needs to be, you know. And somebody in that situation shouldn't just necessarily be coming in and delivering a set. They should be making it relative to the audience. So, you know, if it's an organization they're delivering a set to, they should be thinking about who their audience is, who could they call out, you know, what industry type is the company in, who could they call out to make fun of, and then all of a sudden it makes it more relatable to who's in the audience. You know, they've called out the CEO, or they've called out the marketing manager that everybody knows, and then it's made a funny moment, and it just makes it cohesive and come together, rather than just a comedian being in a situation delivering a set that he doesn't know anybody, not everybody in the audience knows him, and, you know, it's no point investing the money and then not doing it properly. Really interesting. Right, let's see where we go next. We're going back to our Tim. So this is time for the results, Tim, and what we want to, I'm going to say two things. First of all, we need to know about our Tim. So can you tell us about that? But I, as a northerner, when Tim and I spoke the other week, I, as a northerner, was like, oh, our Tim, because anybody in my family we would refer to as, like, my sister would be our. So our is kind of an endearing thing. But where did you get our Tim from? Need to tell us that story, and then you can tell us about gin.
So I got the our Tim name when I was working in local radio. I worked for a radio station called Mercia. They were part of the West Midlands group that was Beacon, BRMB, Mercia, I think it was Y107 or something like that, that then became Free Radio. And I started out just helping out, and then I started helping out on the breakfast team, and they said, you know, you're quite funny, you're quite up for things, so do you feel like, you know, would you be up for coming on air and doing stuff on air and sort of being our stunt boy kind of thing, and sort of being almost like a co-presenter? I was like, yeah, I'd love to, absolutely love to. So I was always out doing stupid things, and when I say stupid things, I mean sort of like, at one point they said, will you go out to the train station and just try and hug people? I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. So I was out there with all mic'd up and so forth, and just sort of like going, well, who do you want me to hug now? It's like, who can you see? So I can see a policeman. Go and hug him. And it's sort of like, okay, and off you go kind of thing. Or going into somebody's house at 6 o'clock in the morning. I remember this one guy, he had just done a night shift. He'd come back from Wales. He was totally and utterly exhausted. He'd gone to bed, and I was in his house at 6:30 in the morning. He'd literally been in bed for about 45 minutes. So he'd just gone into that deep sleep. And I got a full drum kit, and I just went bananas on the drum. And he just came out and screamed live on radio. And I was always known as our Tim. They always just referred to me as that. You're right, our Tim, what are you doing? And that would just lead straight into me. And then when I started freelancing for events and venues and so forth, everyone knew me as our Tim. So I just kept that namesake, and it's sort of, that's sort of my brand is our Tim. Everyone sort of knows me as that. It's working quite well now. Now I've got branded stuff. If I'm walking around events and so forth, and someone wants me, they're like, our Tim, I'm like, yes, how you doing? It's a warm name, you know. It's a name that people can say, and they don't feel, you know, if I was to say my real name, Tim Watson, they'd be like, okay, that's a bit more, feels a little bit more elevated. Whereas our Tim, it's a lot more approachable. So that's where the our Tim name came from.
Brilliant, I love that. So our
right,
Tim,
gin.
Talk to us about gin.
Now, usually I would have rehearsed this, and I wouldn't be looking down, but you have to forgive me for looking down. So I've got some notes in front of me. But gin is a fantastic drink, and in the space of about 5 years, it has absolutely exploded. So in 2015, just 10% of the UK had actually really drank gin. In 2019, that had gone up to 25%, so more than doubled. And there is now a complete A to Z of gins. There genuinely is a gin, at least one for every single letter. But the G and T, the gin and tonic that we all know and love, actually started out back in the 16th century. It was introduced by the army of the British East India Company. And in 1750, do you know how many gallons of gin was being consumed in just London? How many gallons? Somebody give me a number.
100,000.
I don't know, but lots.
11 million gallons of gin was being consumed in 1750, and I suspect it's been going up ever since. But anyway, the thing that you're really going to want to know about gin is, what is the right measure? Do you have it with lemon? Do you have it with lime? Do you have it with cucumber? It's up to you. You can have it a 1-to-1 measure. You can have it a 1-to-3 measure. I'll let you decide whether that's 3 measures of gin, 1 part tonic, or the other way around. But there genuinely is an A to Z of gin, starting with anti-gin, going all the way through to Zudan gin. And there's even a Q gin, which is Quguelela gin. Quguelela. Something like that. Try and say it after you've had a few. Anyway, that is a very brief story of gin for you. And that was all done in the time of this presentation.
Very good, mate. Well done.
Round of applause.
Thank you.
Well done.
And the good news is, you are only 16 minutes away from it actually being acceptable to have a G&T.
I would like to say that it's probably already acceptable to have a gin and tonic because it's past 12 somewhere in the world. Not that I'm having a gin and tonic, but you know.
Yes, I like it. And I have the perfect glass for my gin and tonic, one of these. And I thought, oh, it's all disappeared. There we go.
It disappears.
Nice glass.
Right, so thank you so much, Tim. That was brilliant. Great to see you in action. It just shows you what you can do really quickly. Just like less than 5 minutes research, so thank you. And that just showcases how important it is to have a good person in front of the camera bringing it all together. What I'd like to do now is, you know, I'm all for having interactive tools, so I'm going to screen share again, and I'm going to ask you to go get your phones out and go to slido.com. If that's okay. Or you do slido.com and put in the code 38771. Is everybody in?
Yeah, I haven't got my phone with me, Debbie, sorry.
Oh, okay. Oh, Matt.
You had one job, man.
Open it up on the screen. Okay, so let's do a little vote. How did our Tim do today?
Oh, I'm glad I'm in on this. Right, where do I score?
Yeah, I'd vote 5. That was great.
Brilliant. Well, 4 of us have voted, and we know who hasn't. Matt.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'd say that's a pretty resounding success. So thank you for that, Tim. And also, what have you most enjoyed about today? So give us a word or a sentence. The stories, entertaining, great advice, and well presented. Whoever said that, that's nice to know.
Yeah, I'll go along with all of those.
I was going to say, Matt, have you got anything you want to submit?
It's good. Fair play to Tim for putting that together with gin at such short notice. Great. And as you say, it shows the value that somebody who's been in the business for a long time and is very slick at it, and it makes a difference. It's you know, I can listen to Tim all day long, even if the subject matter isn't necessarily. It's just engaging people. You know, he could have been talking about bricks, and I'd have been interested. You know?
Oh, thank you, Matt.
No, it's good.
Thank you.
You're good at what you do.
I'm offended though, Matt. Could you not listen to me all the time, every day?
Hang on there, Matt. I might have a struggle here for you to get yourself out of that hole.
Yeah. I'm just gonna go on mute now.
Brilliant. Well, that's it for today, guys. I don't know if anybody's got any questions for Tim or any questions for me about events. You know me, I can talk about events and ideas for taking your events online and stuff that we've been learning and sharing with people. as much as anybody can. So if anybody's got any questions, please shout, or would like to connect afterwards. That'd be really great. And thanks so much, Tim. Really, really great to get
My
you
pleasure.
involved.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much, guys. Can I add one last thing? Can I add a request? At the moment, I'm trying really hard to build my YouTube channel. I'm trying really hard to do it. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. So if you could have a look on my YouTube channel, super easy to find. Just search for @Tim or youtube.com/OurTim. Have a look on there, see what you think. If you like what you see, can you hit that subscribe button for me? And maybe share it with some friends or family or something like that. I'm just trying to build that YouTube channel up. And what I put on there is behind the scenes and close to the action at the events and venues and shows and videos that I present. And I only ever do good quality videos. If I won't watch it and I think it's naff, I won't put it on there. And the maximum I post is 1 video a week, so it won't be spammed. And it's free to subscribe to.
Yeah, I'll check it out, definitely.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, I will just say before I start recording, if anybody needs any help with taking their event online, knows of anybody that's struggling, because I appreciate it's a really unusual environment, and it takes a lot of work to make sure stuff comes across well, and if people don't have a clue where to start, please send them my way, because I'm happy to have a conversation and we can help them pull it together. And that's the thing. I've had a call with a client this morning, and they just don't know where to start, and it's that, where do we start, how can we help? And ZiaBia can help. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.